Hello, you. It's me. And I was going to be talking about Gypsy today. I may later, probably not. But if you want to see a really good video, go check out Morgan Elena's new video. Apparently, Gypsy was trying to change her whole Wikipedia page about her because she just wants to keep changing the story over and over again till she becomes the victim. But fuck her, because she's not. Anyway, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the whole food stamp shortage. Well, not shortage, but the fact that the government is shut down. People may not receive their food stamps come November. And I have seen so many people make fun of these people. And it really bothers me. You know, they're saying things like, oh, well, you should get a job then if you don't like it, and blah, blah, blah. And the truth is, I have been where they are at. In fact, in some ways, I'm still there. But I know that when I had my child, the father disappeared, just went away. And as I have mentioned previously, and if you didn't know, I did not have great parents. I did not have any supportive family. So I was just kind of left out on my own, which was very difficult. Now, when I first had my child, I had been in a car accident and I was still not completely healed. So it's very hard for me to do anything. I put everything for my child, taking care of my child, which means that I needed assistance and it was available to me. And so I took it. My disability ran out. I went on welfare and got food stamps. Now, I can only speak of the early 90s, but when I was on it, I got $500 a month and I received $116 in food stamps every month. And that was it. With that, I found well, they were called studio apartments, but they were literally like a little tiny room with a bathroom. And I was happy to have it. It was $300 a month. I still had to pay phone bill. And so I didn't have a lot of money left over. At that time, you had to actually pay for long distance. So it's a little more expensive than it is now. But anyway, so I had my home phone and I also bought a pager that was $10 a month. So that someone needed to get a hold of me because I couldn't afford a cell phone. They were not as widely used then. I had a pager. So that's what I had. And then I had food stamps just enough to pay for about 2 weeks worth of food. And then the rest of the money went to the rest of the month so that we could still eat. And my child ate well. I didn't always eat because my child always came first. And I did try to get little jobs around my apartment complex, helping other people for extra cash or for a pack of ramen or something, just to make sure that we could eat. It wasn't easy. I know that there's a lot of people out there that scam the system, and I don't know how they do it because the people that were in my building at that time, my apartment complex, there were a lot of single mothers there with 1 or 2 kids, and they were all struggling. There's an older woman there who was on welfare. She was also struggling. There was a lot of people struggling. They did not walk around with, fancy handbags and cars and things. In fact, most people, including myself, didn't even have a car at that time. We had to walk everywhere. That's why when I went to the grocery store, it was 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back. And I put all the groceries on the handles of my child's stroller, and it worked fine for us for a while. It was great. And I still was trying to figure out what I can do to change my circumstances, because most places, when you are applying for work, don't want your child with them. They don't, so like, where do I have the money to put my child in daycare so I can go look for work? Not an easy task. But the welfare department had a great way of solving that. They said, look, we'll give you free daycare, and we will give you free training at a school so that you can learn a skill, and we'll even help you find a job. And I was like, fuck yeah, that's great. Except the free daycare was about 20 minutes from where I lived, which was fine with me. Except that the training was about an hour away, hour and a half, depending on traffic, from the daycare, which wouldn't have bothered me except for the training started before I could get there, and the training ended at around 6, where the free daycare ended at 5:30. So unless I could teleport, I don't know how I was going to be able to do that. And I even called my social worker and said, look, how do I make this work? They said, well, ask someone to pick up your child. There's nobody. I didn't have anybody. And they couldn't seem to understand. There were no parents or grandparents. There was no other parent in the picture, and I didn't have friends that had that availability. They had to work too. So I just was like, how am I supposed to make this work? It doesn't work. I feel like they were setting me up for failure on purpose. And not just me. I feel like they did that with a lot of people just so they could take the welfare away. Because if you didn't accept this, then they threatened to take it away. But thank God, I did find a place that were okay with me bringing my child to my interview. I said, look, I didn't have a babysitter. Is this okay? They said, that's fine. And I actually got the job. And thank God for that. I was so happy to put all that crap behind me because it was miserable. I mean, nobody tells you when you go on welfare that you have to check in with the welfare office on a regular basis, which means that you have to, take a bus or drive 20 minutes away, wait 8 hours, and then be told you have to come back because they didn't have enough time for you. I mean, not really efficient. I hope to God they're a little more efficient now because then it was awful. It really was. And for people to act like it's a walk in the park, you get all this free money and free food. Yes, I guess. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to do it. And they made you feel like garbage. I mean, I can't tell you anybody who ever knew that I was on welfare on food stamps. I was a whore. I was worthless. I was terrible. Just the people in line when I was paying with food stamps were so mean. Just nasty. Said the worst things to me because it means that they had to wait in line a little bit longer because they have to run the little, they had to run the paper money through the system. I don't know what exactly they did, but they had to count it out one by one and run it through, I guess, to make sure it was legit. I'm not sure how that worked. But people in line would get so pissed off and yell and complain and call me the worst things. It was a nightmare. And again, I don't know what other people's experiences are. If you had a welfare experience or being on a welfare experience, let me know. Because for me, it was awful. And for people to attack now, all those people that are getting food stamps, I would say most of these people are getting it because they need it. They need it to supplement because they don't have enough to get food and they deserve to eat. I don't care if you're an older person. I don't care if you're a single parent. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're just a person who's on, who's having hard times, which is a lot of people right now. Food stamps can literally help save lives. And for people to be so mean and so cruel, get a job, what's wrong with you, you lazy bitch? Because, primarily it's single mothers. I don't agree with these women getting on the TikToks and wherever on the internet and saying, oh, well, we're going to steal your groceries. If we can't get them, well, I'm going to get them any way I can, even if it's from you. I don't think that's a good idea either. That's not smart thinking because of course the people whose food you're stealing could be, suffering just as much as you are. And that would be very cruel to take the only food that they have for them, for you. But I understand the fear. I understand the panic. And I think that's, even though they're not thinking right, it's because of the panic. Just because you don't have yours doesn't mean you get to take from others. But the panic of not having anything is frightening. It's frightening to think, how am I going to eat? How is my child or children? How are they going to eat? I don't have anything. That's why I was getting the food stamps in the first place. It was supposed to help me out until I didn't need them anymore. And most people are facing that right now. They're panicked because they don't know what they're going to do. And I can't believe that people are attacking them. The idiot women, because I've only seen women do it, but the idiot women who are saying, well, I'm going to take your groceries, I can understand the anger toward them. But again, it's still because of their panic, because they don't know what they're going to do to feed themselves and their family. It makes me so upset. I remember being so strapped for cash, and I wasn't going to get my food stamps until the next day. I had 50 cents in my pocket, and I knew a store that had buns. They're just nice warm bread buns that were 20 cents each. So I went and got 2 of those and gave them both to my child, because that's all we had. Literally bread and water until the next day. But I wanted to make sure that she didn't suffer and that she wasn't hungry. But it's a horrible feeling. I remember a similar situation where I wasn't going to get food stamps till the next day. And of course that means waiting in line for 2.5 hours or so to get them. But I didn't have anything. And I remember being so frustrated. I thought, well, I'm going to take my child for a walk and just try not to think about it, just try to look at something and try to distract ourselves from, this horrible thing. And I remember as I walked to the end of the block, and right at the corner, right in the little gutter area, there were $3 there, just laying there. I picked them up. I looked around. There was nobody there. I don't know where the $3 came from, but I took those $3. I went across the street to Burger King and got 2 Whoppers, which were huge at the time. And I could get 2 for those $3. And we ate that day. You can't tell me God doesn't exist. Because I really had no idea what I was going to do for food. But we got a break. And you might say fast food maybe not have been the greatest of ideas, but honestly, at the time it was inexpensive, and a Whopper has meat, bread, vegetables, tomatoes, lettuce. To me, it seemed like the perfect meal so that we wouldn't starve. And these were the things that I went through a lot when I was on welfare. So I just don't understand people. I don't think people are seeing what's really happening. It's always the people that are the most vulnerable that get hurt the most. And this is why, because they don't have an ability to fight back. And people just trash them as if they're worthless, which I'm sure is so great for the self-esteem, right? I mean, someone saying you're worthless and a piece of shit and a whore, and then getting up and going to look for a job, those are both really conducive to each other. Am I right? I get so angry. It's so frustrating. People who haven't suffered don't understand it. And people who have and still act like they don't understand it, that makes me the angriest. Oh, well, I was a starving student once. Yes, but you weren't trying to provide for another person, were you? You were trying to provide for yourself. And all of us are willing to sacrifice for ourselves. We do our best, or at least some of us are. But it doesn't matter if you're a single person struggling. I mean, it does. I don't want you to struggle either. But it's different when you have a child or children that you are responsible for and you have nothing to give. You don't want to see your child cry and be hungry. And I just wish people would be a little more cognizant of that and a little more understanding, because it's not easy. It wasn't easy for me. Did I make it out? Yes, I finally did. And thank God for that. But even now, I struggle. Even now, I struggle a lot because, as we know, the economy is shit. And a lot of people are struggling all over again. It's not fun. At least I've been through it, so I know I can get through it. But to take away those little helpers like welfare or food stamps, to take that away from people who really, really need it, another really, because they really need it, and then laugh at them, the whole point is it's there to help people who need it, to help them get back on their feet. So why are you kicking them down when they're already down? It seems so unfair. And I just wish people would stop. And I hope to God the government stops acting like little babies, opens up the government again, and starts paying people their paychecks and giving people their food stamps and doing what they're supposed to do to run the country and keep it going, instead of act like little toddlers who are like, I don't like how you play, so I'm taking my ball and going home. Because that's how they're acting. And I'm not talking just Republicans, just Trump, or just Democrats. I'm talking about all of them. Stop acting like children. Act like the adults that you're supposed to be. Get together, open everything up, turn on the lights, get together, and try to make some fucking compromises. Because compromising the health of so many adults and children because you can't get your act together isn't fair. Anyway, thank you for listening. And please, lots of comments down below if you have a story yourself, or if you disagree, or if you agree, or whatever. I love to hear it. I love to read it. So please do. And that's all I got to say.